Hey everyone, I have the pleasure of being with Juergen Brock today, who's the CMO of Fujitsu, one of the leading technology and information companies in the world. And just heard a great panel discussion. He had a lot of amazing thoughts, and I just wanted to get your ideas on one of the statements you made, Juergen, is that social really isn't an issue for your company anymore. A lot of businesses are still struggling with this, but you said it fits really well, and budgeting isn't even really an issue for social.
Right, so background to this is we started very early on. So we started, I think it was in the year 2006, so 10 years ago I presented to the board about this new thing. At that time we were referring to it as Web 2.0, and I made it quite clear that this is a very influential force, and it's totally different, because one of the discussion points today was all around control and how do you manage things, but you have to let go in social. You can't control it, that is really key. And when I said it's not an issue, it is no longer an issue because there is now an understanding that social media is influential. I'm mainly in the B2B space, so the question was always how relevant is this to B2B, so that's okay. And in terms of budget, it actually is not so expensive because you can use tools such as employee advocacy as one thing, so you engage your own sales force or customer-facing, customer-oriented folks within the organization, and that's not very expensive. Our own channels obviously also not so expensive. Of course, you can spend in terms of social media, paid social media, and if you take a look at conversion rates, what we are seeing is very good conversion rates, for example, with Twitter and LinkedIn compared to traditional digital media channels such as search, for example.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit more about employee advocacy. This is something a lot of businesses are struggling with. Do you have a formal employee advocacy program, or how's it working so well at Fujitsu?
Yes, we recently launched an automated employee advocacy program, which is essentially using a tool where we centralized content that we globally and locally produce for employees to share using their own channels, so their own private Facebook, Twitter accounts or their LinkedIn accounts, and that works very, very well, and it ties into something very old called word of mouth. Some of us might remember, but it's taking word of mouth into the digital domain. If I share something because I think it's important and relevant with my network of people, it's much more influential than I pay for in terms of classical advertising expenditure.
And how do you measure that? How do you know that you're doing well with employee advocacy?
Well, part and parcel of what we have set up is actually a tracking mechanism. So every time an employee shares something, it's a trackable share, if you like. And then, of course, what we do in terms of ROI, we relate it to what we would have had to pay had we opted for the paid media space. So we see exactly in terms of media equivalent what we would have achieved had we bought it, and that's how we derive the ROI.
One final question. You mentioned in your remarks, and you hinted at it here, that Twitter works really well for you. And Twitter is not the most popular network. And you even said, well, Facebook doesn't even really work that well, except maybe in Russia.
Yes, correct. Yes.
But so tell me, what's working well for you on Twitter? Do you have a specific Twitter strategy, or is it just organic?
We're in the B2B space, and the key is how well can you target the audience. There are quite some nice mechanisms within Twitter to target your audience, where you can infer, if you like, that these are the right people to talk to. Probably why our conversion rate's higher than in any of the other digital channels has to do with still Twitter's relatively new in the B2B space. So it could well be that within a few years' time this is sort of regression to the mean, if you like, and we see conversion rates that are lower.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. And if people want to follow you and what you're thinking and talking about, how can they find you on the web?
Well, if you type in Juergen Brock, that's Juergen Brock, and if you add the PhD, and then you find also some of my academic work. And in terms of Twitter, it's Joe Brock. This is ZHOUBROCK. And thank you very much from my side for asking me all these questions.
Thank you, sir.